It is a Monday. We're going to make this a mock draft Monday. We're going to talk about the Orlando Magic's options, go over my latest mock draft as we get ready for the NBA draft on this Monday morning or Monday, whatever you're listening to, whatever day it is. It's time for Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is May 29th, 2023. Have a Memorial Day. You're not supposed to say Happy Memorial Day, but it is kind of the unofficial start to summer. So whatever you're doing to celebrate Memorial Day, whether it is remembering someone, a family member perhaps, who fought in a war as a veteran, it just does some service to you, or you're out there at the beach having a good time. Have a good day off if you have the day off. My name is Phil Prospernick. I'm the site expert and editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, I just published my latest mock draft. So we're going to make today a mock draft Monday. We're going to go over what I think is going to happen in the NBA draft, the top of the draft, especially the tough choice facing the Magic at number 6. And whether the Magic can get their guaranteed shooter at number 11. We're going to go through some of those options, go through some of those permutations. We've talked a little bit about this, some wild card options for the Orlando Magic as well as we get ready for the NBA draft. We'll get to all that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. Obviously, people still having a good time here in downtown Orlando. So obviously, you could go anywhere and find a mock draft. You could find something, someone having some opinion about how this draft is going to go. And, what I always like to say whenever we do these kinds of exercises, whether it's a fake trade, whether it's a mock draft, is you don't want to just take everything at face value. Like I have people who send me comments, and we're going to talk about some of these prospects and some of these kind of wilder things, just saying, hey, I saw a mock draft that said the Magic are taking this guy. They're going to do it, right? They're going to take this guy. Or, I had someone who has commented several times now saying there's a lot of people, there's a lot of so-called experts saying the Magic are going to trade up to 3. And I'm just like, look, we had that conversation on the podcast last Monday. I don't think it's anything there. There's really no reporting substantiating it. What mock drafts are supposed to do? As they're just supposed to present you the scenario and present you what could happen. NBA teams do this mock draft exercise too. NBA teams go through this process of trying to figure out what's going to happen in the draft and try to go through the different permutations and say, okay, if this team does this, then what happens? How does this draft board shake out? It's all about preparation. And that's really what this is. At this stage, too, I would say a mock draft almost acts like a big board. We've done big boards before. I've gone through my big board, particularly when it comes to the Magic. But it acts a little bit of, okay, like what does the person making the mock draft value? On my mock draft 1.0, I probably valued shooting a little bit more than talent. We're Magic fans. I'm a Magic fan. Shooting's at a premium. I know how rare it is. And so I probably overvalued shooting. And I think on mock draft 2.0 that I published on OrlandoMagicDaily.com on Friday, I probably I probably overcorrected and said, okay, I'm going to focus on talent. I thought about need, especially when I get later in the draft. I don't think about need as much, but I thought a little bit more about need and what teams need. and realize that, go back to my truism, talent should win. Talent still matters. Take talented players. It's sometimes really that simple. And so when we look at the mock drafts, when we look at how things shake out, it's really opinion. And so, let's take, for example, obviously Victor Wembanyama is going number 1. On my latest mock draft, I still have Brandon Miller going to Charlotte. And look, I think I wrote in my post about it, it's like, I think Charlotte's going to end up taking Scoot Henderson there. And when I do mock draft 3.0, when I do another mock draft closer to draft day, I'm probably going to put Scoot Henderson there. And obviously we'll get a little bit more information. That'll help kind of clarify some things as well. So the reason why I would say Brandon Miller over Scoot Henderson is because Charlotte's got Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball. Charlotte, while I don't know what they actually believe they're going to be or what they can ultimately accomplish, at a very baseline, they've been in the play-in tournament the last 2 years. And the only thing that kept them from being in that contention again was LaMelo Ball getting hurt and missing most of the season. And then Miles Bridges being out the whole year. And obviously, good reason for not re-signing Miles Bridges. Brandon Miller, to me, approximates a lot of what Miles Bridges did. And so while you're giving up some of the upside with Scoot Henderson, you get a sure thing and something. And look, Charlotte's been a weird team. They seem very content to be in the middle a little bit. I don't like the fit with Scoot and LaMelo. I think ultimately you'd have to trade one of them. And I don't know if Charlotte's ready to have that conversation. And honestly, I think Charlotte's at a level where they feel like they should be a step up and do something that's a little bit more win now. It's tough. And again, you get into a lot of this internal debate about what do you do with fit and what do you do with need, fit and need versus talent. And I'll tell you at the top of the draft, talent should always win. So again, I'll repeat this. I do think Scoot Henderson's ultimately going to go number 2. He's a very, very talented player. I think Brandon Miller is going to slot in very comfortably at 3 with Portland, and I think he'd be a very, very good fit in Portland. Allow them to go down that two-track path that we talked about last week with Mike Richmond. I have Amen Thompson because he is just so incredibly talented. He's getting compared to Derrick Rose a little bit. I have him at 4. Talent has to win out in some capacity. And, I think this mock draft and what we'll talk about in our next couple segments here, I did a major focus on need. This mock draft that I published on Friday was very much my first time thinking about team needs. Because when I do my first mock draft, I don't care about the lottery order isn't set, so it doesn't feel real yet. It's just more like, okay, let's see how this plays out. Let's get a sense of who might be available for the Magic as I build my prospect list of guys that I want to review. And we will get to prospect profiles coming up later in the week. We'll talk Jordan Hawkins. We'll talk Taylor Hendricks. We'll talk Cam Whitmore coming up here very, 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 very shortly in a little bit more detail, a little bit more Magic-centric. Again, if you missed it, we had Richard Stamen on of Locked On NBA Big Board on the pod last Thursday. We've hit on a lot of these prospects, and we're going to kind of continue to do a global look at things. This mock draft, I really started to think about fit. And so I probably went too far on the fit in a lot of ways. And I'll admit to that. That's a flaw. That's part of what this exercise is go too far in one direction, see what it looks like, then reel it back in. That's why we revise these things. That's why we do these things again over and over and over again and try to come up with something resembling a consensus. So I've revealed my top 4. I'll tell you who I have number 5 in my mock draft. And the difficult choice, considering all this that we just talked about, that the Magic face at number 6. We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. Every day of the NBA playoffs and finals coming up starting Thursday, one PrizePicks user will win a chance at becoming a millionaire. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern Time will be randomly selected each day. And whoever placed that entry is going to be given a 6-pick flex with following payouts. 6 correct picks will get you $1 million. 5 correct picks, $80,000. 4 correct picks, $16,000. It's really, really that easy because most of the time I know when I play, I'm getting 4 of those 6 correct. I'm still getting in the money. Full details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at the link to be eligible for the $1 million entry. Once you opt in, all you have to do is play the game like normal, and you could be the lucky winner. So how do you play PrizePicks? Well, glad you asked, because PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. It really doesn't get much easier than that. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players. If they go on to score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, and so much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals. They're currently operational in more than 30 states, including here in Florida, as well as Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100. So let's get to the Magic's pick. I talked a little bit about the way that certainly how I approached this mock draft. We talked a little bit how I would look at other mock drafts. Again, it's more about the information. It's about, okay, like this is the player. This is generally how things can shake out. I've seen some mock drafts that don't take need into effect really well or misdiagnose what the Magic need. But when we get to it, having 2 picks in this draft, barring trades, we're not going to talk about trades yet, but having 2 picks in this draft gives the Magic quite a bit of power. You notice on my little rundown, which is over here, I'm still getting used to it. New studio. Hope everyone's loving it. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, not a single thing's different for you. Good job, everybody. No. I appreciate all my listeners, both audio and visual. But if you're watching on the YouTube, I do have a nice little rundown over here. You see that at 11, I kind of say guaranteed shooter at 11. And that's because the way this mock draft worked out and the way that it seems like most mock drafts are working out is the Magic are going to get their pick of shooters at 11. So I'm going to address that in our next segment. At number 6, though, if the Magic feel comfortable that they're going to get their shooter at 11, and again, I'm big on this. My goal on draft night is get a shooter. Doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter how you get him, get a shooter on draft night. That's my main goal on draft night. So if you're comfortable you're going to get your shooter at 11, what do you do then with number 6? That gives you the opportunity perhaps, and this is kind of the game theory of the draft now, picking at number 6, thinking that, okay, we are pretty confident that Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins are going to be there at 11. That means you could take a little bit of a swing. Take a guy that may not be the perfect fit or may need some development at 6. And I probably took some heat in the comment section. I'll probably take some heat here with who I took at number 6. And again, please feel free to do so. Essentially at number 6, the Magic seem like they're going to have the choice of Asar Thompson, Cam Whitmore, Jarris Walker, Taylor Hendricks. And I've seen some people throw Anthony Black in there, so I'll throw Anthony Black in there as well. And why not Cason Wallace as well? That's 6 players. Some of these guys might actually be available at 11, so why not throw Grady Dick in there at 6 as well? Although a lot of people, the consensus seems to be that's a little high for him. If you are comfortable with one of those players at 6, and judging by most Magic fans, most of them are very comfortable with at least taking one of those players, then it just becomes about taking the right guy. Now, in my mock draft, again, published on OrlandoMagicDaily.com back on Friday, I'll try and provide a link on our Facebook page as well as on my Twitter account at PhilipRR_OMD. I believe it is the pinned tweet on Orlando Magic Daily right now. If not, I'll take care of that after I leave this broadcast room. I had Detroit taking Cam Whitmore at 5. And the reason for that is I think Cam Whitmore fits them really well. Again, I would say on my mock draft 2.0, I put a little too much emphasis on fit. I think Asar Thompson would fit there really well as another ball handler to kind of take pressure off of Cade Cunningham and Jay Nivey, help them be a little bit more spot-up shooters. But both those guys need the ball in their hands. Asar Thompson is going to struggle a lot without the ball in his hands. Cam Whitmore to me seemed like he'd be a good fit because good defender, good tough defender, can hit spot-up shots, can attack a little bit off the dribble. Whitmore feels like a very good pick for Detroit, especially with all the centers that they have, especially with the ball handlers that they have. They can slide Whitmore in with those guys, and I think he'd be very, very good. So I had Whitmore going 5. That takes off a player off the board that I'm not particularly fond of. There are things that I do like about him. I see why people like him. So I don't want to dismiss him. I'm not going to be upset if the Magic do end up taking him. I just have my concerns, especially with how he fits with this team. Similarly, I have concerns about how Asar Thompson would fit with this team. However, Asar Thompson is so talented. We talked with Richard Stayman on Thursday about this. Richard said that Asar, at the very least, is going to be a good defender. You could see him playing a role as a defender. And having that role be established fairly clearly, I think is a very positive thing. I think that does matter. But the shooting is a concern, although it did start to come around and percolate a little bit during the playoffs. There's a lot of people who just don't believe that shooting is going to come around. If the Magic believe that Cam Whitmore shooting will come around or Asar Thompson shooting will come around, take those guys. Talent has to win. If they're not sure the shooting is going to come around, then I have some real questions. I got into this debate, or I had someone kind of mention this to me online, saying, just saying, hey, Philip, I think you're caring a little bit too much about next season. I think you're caring a little bit too much about making the playoffs next year. And wait for the Locked On mock draft. Yell at me then. It's coming. I did some things that I know a lot of people are going to disagree with. I know that people on the broadcast disagree with. I'm cool with it. I was happy with what I did, but I will admit I don't want to call it tunnel vision. I don't have like a win at all costs mentality about next year, but I do think the Magic have to take some very serious actionable steps to set themselves up to be a playoff team. And they got to make, to me at least, they've got to get a rookie that's going to contribute in a meaningful way to a playoff team. And so for me, drafting someone who is not a good shooter or just a non-shooter does not work. If we're going to build with Jalen Suggs, if we're going to build with Markelle Fultz, they need guards who can shoot next to them. You could get away with maybe one non-shooter on the floor with a guard and make up for it with a center or forward who can shoot, but the Magic need shooters that defenses are going to respect. And they're going to let Asar Thompson shoot all night long. They're going to let, I think Cam Whitmore can bring them around, but they're going to let Cam Whitmore shoot. They're going to let an Anthony Black shoot all that he wants. Anthony Black, I really like him. He's a great defender. Probably the best perimeter defender in this draft. I put Jarris Walker as the other one. Asar Thompson's up there with them defensively, but Anthony Black's shown that he can do it at a collegiate level. He can't shoot, and his free throw percentage isn't good either. That concerns me. I don't need more guards. If I'm the Magic, I don't need more guards that can't shoot. But talent matters. Talent really means something. So with the 6th pick in my mock draft, I ended up taking Taylor Hendricks. And look, Hendricks is a safe pick. At the very least, he's going to be kind of like a Trey Lyles type. Can hit an outside shot, can defend a little bit, maybe not at a starter level, but he'll be in your rotation. He'll run the floor. He'll get some nice dunks. He'll have a few big games here and there. The talent will come out. Is he destined to be a star? No. Cam Whitmore's built more to be a star. Asar Thompson's built more to be a star. Anthony Black's built more to be a star. Cason Wallace is built more to be a star. Cason Wallace, very similar to Anthony Black, although I rank Cason ahead of Black a little bit right now. Really good defender. Better offensive player than Black. Not much of a shooter. Not much of a finisher at the rim. So, I think a lot of people want Cason Wallace to be like the next Tyrese Maxey. Maxey struggled with his outside shot at Kentucky. I remember talking about that during the draft process. he shot 80% from the foul line. So the evidence was there that the shooting was going to come with Maxey, and we saw that a little bit develop this year with the Sixers. We've seen that come to the front. Essentially, when you look at number 6 for the Magic, then it is at the very heart of this question of talent versus need. If the Magic go with talent, which maybe they should, get some high upside guys, another bite at the lottery apple. They're there. This is probably our last year picking this high in the draft, hopefully. If that's the case, talent wins. Asar Thompson, Cam Whitmore, those are your picks. If it's about fit, if it's about guys that will help this team, that can still grow, obviously, but help this team win, I really think it's Taylor Hendricks. He may not be a star. He may not be able to attack much off the dribble, but he's going to run the floor. He's going to defend. He's going to protect the rim. He's going to protect the paint. He's going to step out and hit jumpers. That three-point shot will come around. There is a lot to like when it comes to what the Magic can get from a guy like Hendricks. I have Hendricks 6th in my mock draft, over Asar Thompson. But certainly I am willing to listen to debate on that. And I'll put that debate in the comments and let you guys debate that as well. If number 6 is a battle between potential talent and team fit, that makes number 11 fairly easy. We'll talk about the options at number 11 and how the draft might shake out. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. So when it comes to this Magic team, obviously, shooting is everything. Again, it's not going to go away until the Magic do something about it. If that I think that makes sense. The Magic need shooting. Plain and simple. They need guys who could put the ball in the basket. They need guys who are going to spread the floor and make teams think about them. And so it certainly feels like the pick at number 11 is a lot simpler. We'll see how the draft shakes out. I had Asar Thompson going 7, followed by Anthony Black at 8, followed by Cason Wallace at 9, followed by Jarris Walker at 10. Maybe there's some switching and changing there, but at the end of the day, at 11, it feels almost certain the Magic are going to have their choice of Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins. And if Dick isn't there, Jordan Hawkins is a perfectly acceptable option at number 11. I am almost zeroed in on Hawkins at 11 unless Dick is there. And even then, I'm debating whether I would take Hawkins over Dick, to be honest. I really like Jordan Hawkins. I really like him. Good athlete. I think he has. I think Grady Dick is probably a smarter basketball player today, and he'll always be a pretty smart basketball player. But Hawkins shoots on the move. I think there's room to expand his game, whereas Dick is already very good at what he does. But I'm not sure his game will ever expand beyond that. And so I think there's a real debate there. Again, it's all about talent versus fit. And finding something that meshes well is really, really important. But, again, my goal in this draft is to get shooting. If the Magic do not come away with a shooter in a trade or one of Jordan Hawkins or Grady Dick, I will be upset. I will be on this podcast. I will be saying the Magic failed in this draft. I'll be saying they did not accomplish their goals. I don't care what's coming up in the running in free agency. Maybe I will reserve judgment to change my mind if they end up getting a premier shooter in free agency. You can never have too much shooting. An opportunity to get shooting for cheap is not something you can give up. I will repeat those words, maybe not verbatim, but that's how I feel today about this draft. The Magic have to come away with shooting. And this draft does appear to be setting up for them to do so. It does appear to be lining up for them to get the shooting they so desperately need. And that's exciting. Again, knowing that there is A very good chance. Now, could someone jump up and take Grady Dick between 7 and 11? Yeah, absolutely. Does it feel like they're going to jump up and take Jordan Hawkins? Not really. I don't think so. And so knowing that the Magic are, again, maybe someone takes Dick and then someone tries to pull an Elfrid Payton on the Magic and say, hey, we'll take Jordan Hawkins and force the Magic to go get him. Then again, I don't, Rob Hennigan did not play his hand very well there. Jeff Weltman is not going to tip his hand. He will go to the off. He'll go to free agency rather than give up an asset for something. And again, I'm a big believer if there's a player you really, really like, go get him. It doesn't really matter what the cost is. Jordan Hawkins is not the guy to sell the farm for. Grady Dick is not a guy to sell the farm for. The only three guys that are really there to sell the farm for are Victor, obviously, Scoot, and Brandon. I'll give you Amen Thompson if you really like it. I'm not sold on that. Maybe you really like Anthony Black. Maybe you really like Cason Wallace. This draft does not scream a lot of star potential to me. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of moving around. Again, maybe the Magic can play a couple teams off each other and say like, hey, we got 6. If you really want Taylor Hendricks, or you want to make sure you get Cason Wallace over Anthony Black, trade up to 6, take him here. We'll move back to 8, 9, 10 and grab the guy that we want there. Again, I don't think that's a crazy thing. The Magic should be the ones with power. They shouldn't be trying to move up or move around a little bit. In my mock draft, I have the Magic taking Greg Dick at 11. I do think he's ultimately the best shooter in this draft. I think he's someone that you do have to keep an eye on. I think he is someone that plays really smart and would fit really, really well in this team. You might have to hide him a little bit defensively because he's not going to keep guys he's not necessarily going to keep guys in front of him as effectively. But again, I think that he's certainly a very, very good player as well on that front. Just kind of going through the rest of my lottery. I have Oklahoma City taking Leonard Miller from the G League Ignite at 12. I have Jordan Hawkins at 13 going to Toronto. And then 14, I have Kobe Buffkin. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on for the Magic at 11. Decent shooter at the point guard position. Decent defender. Just does a lot of things like pretty well. Nothing like that stands out significantly. You can see my full first round mock draft on OrlandoMagicDaily.com. I just went through kind of the first 14 picks here. Went through some of the decision making and kind of storylines, I suppose, that will sit with this Magic team as we get set for the draft lottery. But definitely a lot to get through, a lot to think about for this Orlando Magic team. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places on the podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow us on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. We want to thank you again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. If you're part of our everyday crew, be sure to tune in tomorrow. We're going to talk about Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Plus, we'll chat a little bit about the Magic's clutch strategy this season, what they may have learned, what they may have gained from their inconsistencies late, and what that says about this team moving forward. We'll talk about all that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.